Good afternoon and welcome. We are here for our next session in our Hyperpigmentation 90-day program. This will be session 6, and we're thanking you for joining today. We are going to be looking at Lily's skin. Remember last session she had a mid-depth peel. She got a lot of frosting in that peel. We basically used the TCA salicylic as our main acid. It was a version of the melanin lift. And so we're going to kind of assess her skin. We have been talking, and this can happen and will happen with you and your client from time to time. So how do we deal with some of the things that we're seeing? And so we're kind of going to just jump right in and assess her skin, okay? So you guys might want to switch the cameras more to her skin. I know that Lily, when she went through the peel, had a few days of, just feeling like it was really hurting, and she had sent, I guess, even some pictures of something that was going on. I think it was getting a little too dry and cracked. And one of the things that we found out is she wasn't really using the and that could be a couple reasons. It could have been the way we stressed that. It could have been her not feeling the need for it initially, not realizing that she needed more hydration. But it is a kind of a lesson learned all the way around the table here, is that she needs to use that. For those first few days, it is so essential and critical to keep the wound more wet anyway. And using something like the omega-6 will do that and also add some healing. When you get too tight of a skin and it starts to crack on its own in that way where it's almost cracking more from a dryness and tightness, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. You can maybe have some other words, but anyway, kind of from there, then you risk that potential demarcation in the skin and potential for some pigmentation that can come up in post-inflammatory pigmentation. So it's really, really important to use things like post-balm and omega-6, drop of essence, things like that, quite often and quite generously on your skin. I know I lather it on because I'm really dry and I'll get really tight and super sensitive, so I really need it. So that was one thing that kind of went on. There's a couple areas where along her mouth area, and one area that I see right now that looks like a little pick that came up that's still a little pink. I don't know if you can see that. And then around her mouth area, sometimes when you do, especially any higher Fitzpatrick, but even my skin or, really on the whole scale, if you do pull prematurely, it will leave sometimes a red-pink mark, and then it will turn a little dark brown. Typically, the thing is with that is usually we can fix it pretty quickly, diminish that pigmentation, but it is something that we have to really go in and more fix as more of a treatment than kind of continuing on with, other things or maybe the plan to a degree. One other thing that happened within her skin is she did get more breakouts and congestion all along this area here, the jawline kind of underneath, and this around her mouth does not look like we would want it to look. I am still seeing some peeling, though, on her skin, and so that kind of shows, too, that she's not really done healing. Because once the peeling's done, that doesn't mean you're completely healed anyway. Your skin's still going through some transformation and transitional things that are happening there. So we've got some healing to deal with, and then kind of going through and dealing with some of these things that have come up. I think from the breakout, you can get that from any peel, as that can bring up things. Typically, we would have liked to see that after her first peel and then gotten a feel for what was kind of going on underneath her skin, but it wasn't as aggressive. And then the second one,
that was
a moderate progressive plus-ish, or what did we do?
We categorized it as a mid-depth because it was 3 layers of sake.
That's
but,
right. Okay.
But the sake isn't as intense as the TCA sal.
Yeah. So it could be that. It could be something that her skin, didn't agree with too. I don't know if it's that, though. I don't feel it, because TCA we used on her salicylic, but also some skins can't go with that much stimulation sometimes. And, I'm one to constantly preach, less is more. And last week we went for it a little bit more on her skin, feeling like we had a good handle on her skin. And maybe in some ways we went too far with her Fitzpatrick and her skin to a degree to bring up some of those things. So all of this is really kind of thinking it through. Obviously, you don't want to see some of that, but many of this comes along with peeling. And none of it at this point is really going to be something that we can't turn around and make some differences in on the skin. So those are kind of some of my comments and things that have gone through. What would you guys have anything to add before we kind of talk about what we want to do next as a treatment plan? Or what we're going to do today?
Well,
Anybody?
I mean, I would just throw in the fact that, you know, we did incorporate the 10% TCA AHA as well. And even though we didn't see what we would typically call an AHA sensitivity right when we applied that peel, it could have been that maybe she is a little AHA sensitive and that did trigger some of those breakouts later on, you know, that she's been experiencing, or some of the purging and whatnot. But, you know, she did have some congestion in her skin from day one. And
yeah, so
you know,
exactly.
You know, we can't necessarily say, oh, it was all, you know, it was only us. It could have been a combination of things. You know,
that's true. It'd be different if it was a skin that had no congestion issues, no
exactly.
peel, no, you know, like your skin or something like that, and all of a sudden we saw 5 or 6 breakouts. That would be different. So that's a good point, and the AHA is a good point too, because we hadn't used AHA on her during this whole process.
Exactly.
So we were trying to get a little bit more lifting with that and movement on the pigmentation, and so maybe we should have gone with hibiscus, and we knew that, or gone with what's your idea there would be to go with like a 20% lactic first, do that a few treatments back, see how her skin responds if you want to go that AHA route. So it could have been that to bring up some of this acne breakouts that we see.
And I would also just reiterate to people that when you have a client who has this kind of a reaction, they're probably a little panicked, you might be a little bit panicked, but she's still very much in the healing process, and she's still peeling, and especially with the darker skin type, it does take a little bit longer for those pigmentation issues to kind of readjust itself, but it's not going to be permanent. It's post-inflammatory, which is always something that you can fix in most cases. So if the client's panicking, make sure that you remind them that it's all still part of the process. She is still healing, and it's not going to be most likely a permanent effect.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we're within our program of 90 days, and you're going to see some different things over that time period too. So yeah, I do think that's all important. And the one thing about this is why it's so important to see your client 7 to 10 days after a mid-depth peel, and really any if you can, but definitely mid-depth and beyond, because then what we do now is really going to be critical in what we tell her now in really making the change and kind of correcting some of this and dealing with what's going on, and then continue to get progress. Where if she was not to come back for a month and say, well, I got this afterwards, you're going to have a harder time to really fix that for her. So it is really important for you to see them after, you know, that period and that post follow-up. So kind of from there, you know, we talked about a few things, because at first looking at her skin, seeing that she did have a little bit of peeling going on right through this area here, which is where we see more pigment that we didn't see before, and so that kind of brings a little bit of concern, but it is still peeling. And the little pink mark here, as well as some of the breakouts. What do we do? Do we go into a straight post follow-up? One of the things that was my initial kind of reaction was we need to go ahead and do a vitamin A peel. That would be an enzyme and vitamin A using, of course, your cell conditioner and melanin suppressant, and probably mandelic arginine peel. Those are kind of necessities almost within any peel, and then you can use that enzyme and that vitamin A. Or you could just do that without the enzyme too, which her skin would probably do better in that way. That will give her some light exfoliation still, so she's going to continue to peel, but it's going to create more healing and more lightening for the pigmented area. And so we'll maybe be able to get some movement to almost where we don't really see that anymore. But we do have to be careful going that approach. What we would want to see, I think, with that is not the area where she has a little bit of pink. We would not want to see any peeling at all. And those are probably the main things, I guess, that we would determine that. So once we kind of got her on the table and looked at those things, it was like, you know what? We need to change the route and not do professional vitamin A peptide, but we're going to bring in the chronopeptide at this point. So we're going to do something that's healing to her skin, a little bit like a post follow-up, but no enzymes. Not doing anything that's going to disturb the epidermis layer with enzymatic properties or certainly any other acids or anything like that. We're going to do all things that are going to promote healing, but then start some additional support underneath the skin. So as we go through this, we'll kind of talk about it, but that's kind of where we went. Now we could leave out this mask step because we were talking about kind of doing it almost as a 15-minute session really of cleansing, and then the mandelic with the chronopeptide and omega over it, and I'll talk through all of that and why those are kind of the important pieces, but just doing that. But we really kind of thought a little bit more and said, you know, a mask mixture with the milk mask, and we're going to do a whole cocktail there, will bring some more healing that she's kind of in need of as well. And so we'll go that route. And then the ice globes never hurt. She still has inflammation going on, so we'll do that. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. So it's like a very different post follow-up. But you need to be able to do this in your treatment room. You know, you need to be able to follow one and go, okay, here we go. And you've really got to, you know, kind of look at this. So I'm actually, you know, I'm not happy that it happened and but yet I am to a degree because how to do this and then be able to do the right thing on your client. So in a lot of ways, it's a good thing, right? So we're going to go ahead and cleanse her. We're going to cleanse her with gentle cleansers. So you could do something like the milk cleanser. You could do something with citrus gel. You could do a combination, which I think that's what we're going to do, adding the milk and the citrus together and cleansing her skin that way. So very mild. We don't want to bring anything active into her skin along that way, like the baking tea or the pumpkin or anything like that. So we'll get that going. And anything else that we want to kind of talk about with why we're doing this, or maybe just what else y'all think might have happened with their skin, or
absolutely.
I think we kind of covered most of that.
Well, we covered a lot of it, but you know, we wanted to talk a little bit more about wound healing and the different stages of wound healing, and you know, the importance of utilizing the post-care throughout the wound healing process. As we know, there are the different stages, and when on Friday, when we found out that she was not utilizing the omega, you know, of course, her skin was quite sensitive, very dry. It looked irritated, and so we were concerned with that. And
so that was day 3.
And that was day 3. And so as Caitlin and I were looking at, you know, in that first 48-hour window, you really do need to be keeping those wounds somewhat occluded. Now, we're not telling everyone to run out and get post-balm lubricating ointment and just throw it all over their face, but the omega-6 would have provided that barrier that she needed to keep that wound a little bit more occluded. It also would have provided some nutrients and some healing components to it as well that would have helped to reduce some of that sensitivity and dryness that she was experiencing.
Did we find out why she wasn't using that?
We didn't exactly
Lily,
ask.
Did you not think that you were supposed to use the omega yet, or do you remember why you didn't add that in the beginning? Okay. Well, that's okay. So that happens. Call us next time and come up, or we'll come down. But she lost the bottle, so she didn't. And, you know, and maybe not knowing the importance, like I said, it could have been a little bit of I really would encourage you to be very stern with post-care with your clients. You know, when you're going through what to do and all the do's and don'ts and all of that, you want to really let them know and emphasize the importance. And so, you know, that could have been a little bit, but obviously she lost it and maybe you didn't realize the value in it as much, so kind of went on with her regular regimen if they needed that. So, yeah, so I just wondered if we had figured that out, so that's good. But yeah, that's very true. And those first 4
And there's a unique balance that you have to find too, because you don't want to occlude the whole face, because oxygen also plays a key in the healing process. But there's been a lot of studies, and we talked about this earlier too, where really occluded and a wet wound is going to have almost double the healing rate that a dry wound has. So in areas like around the mouth where you peel first because it has so much more movement, those are areas where we would really want to pre-occlude before they become fissures or before they get that kind of irritation that she has. So making sure you're not putting it all over is key too, because we want oxygen to get to the skin as the skin kind of re-epithelializes itself in stage 2, it works from the outside in and also from the bottom up. So we want to make sure that we have all of those areas well protected.
And what you mean by that, because you do use it all over, but like for instance post-balm or pro-salve, that you're not going to necessarily use all over for 3 days, okay? Yes. Now you may, like I said, for my skin, use for 1 full day and then kind of cut it. The Omega you can use a little bit more all over wherever you're dry, because it's not quite the same and creating that same kind of occlusive, but it is giving you some and certainly giving you that hydration. So it's not quite as strong as the Pro Salve or Post Balm in that occlusive side, and so that's what you want to do. So a lot of times what I tell people is take the Post Balm and mix it with the Omega and put that on in certain areas, or then for, you know, after the first 24 hours, you can use it all over for 1 day, and then you kind of just like each day pulling off of it more and more. So kind of just to sort of clarify that. So your omega-6 is a little different, where you could use that a little more liberally if you were really getting dry and tight everywhere. But you do want to keep that in mind when you're using too much of an occlusive. That can kind of defeat the purpose too, because we need that oxygen to breathe. We need the wet sort of side to create a quicker healing time and to not cause that demarcation. So you're really trying to balance that and balance that within your client too. But no, I think that's great. And I mean, that's obviously what really happened. I just wonder what happened with the breakouts. So when did the breakouts start to come up for you, Lily, under here? When did you start seeing those? Okay. So in the last few days. Now, have you been using the Omega a lot more?
I stopped yesterday.
So that's probably what that is. So she's bringing in the Omega-6 kind of almost after it was really needed to a degree. But she still needed it at that point when we saw the picture and things like that. But in a way, it was almost a little late to a degree to now bring that in. And with her skin type being somewhat of a congested skin type, a little bit more oily, Omega, just like Drop of Essence, we don't recommend. Infuse 7, none of those do we really recommend for your acne or congested, oilier, problematic skin types. Cause more breakouts, and usually is not skin friendly for those skin types. And so that answers that question probably is maybe she used it too long, because Friday, you know, and she was peeling now. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Combination of the purging from the deeper peel and then having the occlusiveness of the Omega too long. Yeah. So, you know, to help kind of get to the root and what's really going on helps you. That's why I think our initial, maybe who knows still about the 10% TCA and AHA, but that it wasn't really the acids. It wasn't really that. With her skin, I think it was a combination of some of these other things that we're kind of learning and figuring out. But then you would certainly realize that with these kind of breakouts, if it's caused more from the Omega and from too rich of a product, they'll go away quick. We'll be able to get on those and they'll go away quick. And so, you know, that's good. So we've cleansed her up, dried her, and how's her skin doing and feeling?
It feels good. There's still a lot of peeling.
Yeah. And then we have self-conditioner. Okay. So we're going to use this just to help with more inflammation too, and just give her a high anti-inflammatory, if you will, dose on the skin. And then some antibacterial with that salicylic acid. So bringing this in, and you don't need to use too firm a pressure, especially around those peely areas. You're just kind of getting the benefits of this into the skin. And then we'll go on to the next step there. Yeah, we have a question.
As far as the wound healing goes on the healing time, did you say it varies depending on the actual skin type, as far as like Asian skin or others versus other skin types? Does that play a factor at all, do you think?
I think it varies within every skin condition, because even, I don't know if it's skin, even Asian skin, you see some that heal faster than others, when you say, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily by skin
Genetic.
type,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of intrinsic and extrinsic factors that can relate to your wound healing. If you have a smoker, for instance, who has really low oxygen levels in their body, they're going to have a lot slower of a healing time. Certain medications can also slow your healing. And then extrinsic factors like going out in the sun and exposing yourself to UV radiation before your wound is ready. All of those things can probably play a bigger role than just your typical Fitzpatrick 1 versus 6.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of times people are done by day 7 to 8, but when you do get up into the mid-depth and deep, that does extend really easily to 10 to 12. And, you know, as far as that finalized, you know, she's not in any kind of, she said the first thing was, well, it doesn't hurt anymore, because she went through that hurting stage of a few days of that. And so she's out of that, but she's still considered healing. And so you're going to have a little bit of extension there based on that type of peel. And then certainly bringing in all the different factors. You know, and I think for her, I think she's doing really good for day 10, or day 9?
Day 9.
Day 9, really, in general, being that it was such a deep peel and that she had a few little complications with after day, 3, and kind of dealing with all of that hurtness, or that hurt to the touch, and, I know how all that feels, and especially if you weren't using that omega, because that would have really helped you during that stage too, to not get so far to where it's almost raw, and feeling like that. But yeah, so that's a good question. But in general, I don't think it has much to do with, what do we call that, genetics?
Ethnicity.
Ethnicity. Thank you. I needed that word. I was saying every other word but that. Yeah, so.
So in regards to our next step, I know
Yes.
we had talked about the omega with the milk. And
Because we're finding this out.
do we still want to add a little bit of omega in there?
Maybe not, huh? Let's do milk, and let's do melanin suppressant, and well, see, these look scalped. Am I seeing right? More than a breakout.
Just this little one.
Michelle, can you see all this too? So in here, I was trying to look at her breakouts to see if we wanted to add anything to it. This one, wait, is that like a rash almost, or what do you feel?
I mean, that's got like a wound there, and she is still peeling, but
So they're not really,
It's more like a pick,
to a
isn't it?
degree, it's like, yeah, what does that feel like?
it's really rough. Well, it's more like, not rough, but underlying, you can
Did this
feel.
area itch you a lot?
Oh, so it could almost be
So
like a
she
little.
had, yeah, I think, and that could be the way she was sleeping on her pillow.
Hair
It
even.
could be, something in the environment. She does nails and things. It could something irritated that
Did you start
area.
wearing the mask again, Lily?
She hadn't been wearing the mask.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, something like that irritated that area more than, I would say, congestion. Looking here a little closer, and I just feel like feeling in the neck. Yeah. So maybe just the milk with the melanin suppressant, and why don't you add a little bit of the Therapy E.
Okay. Perfect.
And so we'll do Therapy E as a healing component to kind of cut that milk too, for some of these areas. And that mask can be a great healer, and it was developed for after microdermabrasion and for the purpose of healing and doing a post-care follow-up. But sometimes it can be a little stimulating because of the menthol in there, and just how it feels. It's cooling, and it can feel a little bit stingy at a place like this. So what we'll do, and plus to add more of that healing component, is do the therapy E. We're adding in the melanin suppressant to constantly get us more lightening and really help with what we're seeing with the post-inflammatory. So we'll do that mask on her and skip out on the omega, but that's another thing that you could add is omega into this mask, and it makes it very, very healing and really nice. And so you just mix all of that up and then apply that to the skin, and then do your ice globes right over top. Because I was even thinking maybe we'd want to bring in a little blemish or something, but I don't think we do to anything on her. I think we give it a few more days, and we might see that totally change. And then like you do see scab, kind of so.
And the little congestion she had in the chin area, that I think will just come out with the rest of the peeling.
Yeah.
It looked it wasn't really impacted in there. It was just kind of debris coming out.
Yeah. And so you've really got to try hard, especially now too, is to not pick anything, because you're still going to have some skin that's going to be kind of continuing to exfoliate and lift off. And then, you know, with your little breakouts that you might get, just leave those alone, and we'll give you everything that you need to kind of work and let the products work for you.
And you know, then it brings us into like stage 5 of that wound healing process, that structural remodeling stage, which, you know, that can last for such a long time. And I mean, we're even still seeing her in that, you know, that technically through the number of hours and days that have passed, she's entered into that stage quite thoroughly, but still, even with some of that irritation and some of the lifting of the skin still and the exfoliation, you know, we have to take that into consideration. It's going to take her some time to heal. And that healing process isn't over right away, that remodeling process takes place for many, you know, many days, weeks, months.
Well, yeah, the remodeling itself kind of continues to go for even months, really. Maybe at this level about 6 weeks. I mean, I don't know the exact science on that to say 100% where she would be at. But you're definitely going to get remodeling and changes over this time, and healing still going on. She is still, you know, you're kind of in a fighting mode right now with what's happening on in the wound healing process in the stage, because your skin's wanting to go through more of that remodeling and building of all of that collagen and elastin, and yet it still has a lot of inflammation and dealing with some of the peeling. So you're kind of in between, I'd say maybe in between stages too. They're overlapping and kind of pushing each other along. And that's why you don't want to do too many peels too close together too, because then you affect that stage to now have to stop and almost respond in a different way, and the skin then starts to lose what you're really trying to do. But I would say you're kind of a little bit dealing with that here with her.
Yeah, definitely. And with the wound healing stages, you know, it's very liquid. You can go to the remodeling stage, but depending on virus and bacteria and inflammation, your skin can easily divert back to you know, the reepithelialization phase or things that, I mean, it's a very liquid process. And so you really want to make sure that you're being as careful as possible also with bacteria and with keeping the skin clean, because you don't want to have an infection, and that's what really can start to create a lot of longer problems.
Yeah, that's good. How does all that feel on you, Lily? Okay. Does it feel soothing? Good.
Lily's struggling with a migraine today as well, so
no.
she's like, these ice globes will be quite nice.
That should feel good. Any questions out there?
And then in the stage that she's at right now, also with, you know, still kind of peeling and still really being sensitive, during this stage, the skin really only has up to 80% of its full function. So if we're doing things like another peel or even extractions or things that are aggressive, your skin doesn't have its full 100% fighting capacity anyways. So really sticking with these nourishing ingredients and just really gentle products, it's only going to help to accelerate the process even faster. And the double application of chronopeptide or even a single, that skin strengthening is imperative for her right now. So it's a really good option to be incorporating in this treatment.
If we went to the vitamin A peptide, we're going to then get probably too much peeling with that peptide being more of an exfoliating peptide and all of that too. So the chrono will give us what we need without going too far. But that's a good point too, and those are things that I think just really taking all this into consideration in spacing your treatments out and working within your program and what you're really trying to do. Obviously in a 90-day you are doing things a little bit closer, but then if we kept that up for another 90 days, we'd be in trouble with her skin. You know, you've got to be able to really recognize those stages, understanding the skin, and allowing yourself to have that balance and wait for that true healing to happen within the skin. And even communicating that to the client too, because you know, sometimes they'll go run and get their Retin-A now that we're done. If we say this is it, use your post-tip care for a couple days, then they might be going and I want more of this or that, and they've got to understand what that means. So I think it really is good and for everyone to understand this and then be able to really communicate that.
Exactly, and you know, that was one of the thoughts that we were in discussion with, you know. We're coming up to where, you know, I mean, we'll almost be towards the end of this 90-day series. And with a client with this particular skin type, and given now how she was after this particular peel, would we continue on with another 90-day series that would involve more mid-depth peels to continue to try to lighten that pigmentation? Or would you maybe even look at doing, if you did another 90-day series, more corrective facials and maybe some vitamin A peels?
So, with that question, what you would want to do is wait before you did that 90-day series almost 3 months. So you'd give the skin 3 months of good home care and maybe coming in for a good corrective facial once a month during that process if you want, you know, keeping it up professionally, and then going back to now a 90-day program. And that would vary. It's going to vary on what we see. Would it be smart for her to have a series of vitamin A's? It could be, or going this route almost again to go even further. You really have to see, but that's what you want to assess within these programs. In some skins, you might be able to do a 2-month window, but for most skins, depending on the 90-day, which if you're following any of these, I would say you almost need that full 3 months of no additional peeling, anything that's going to create more inflammation and cause the skin to have to really respond in its healing. So you want to do things that enzymatic, you want to do things that are really building and strengthening the skin. That you can do, but that's about it. If you do too much of the other, what you'll start to see is kind of a thinner skin, a more irritated skin, and sometimes, you know, talking to people and doing education, there's a couple things that I say, you know, you can do behind the chair that you never really want to do, and one of those is create that sensitivity in his skin, because then that can last so long. It can end up, in some cases, lasting a lifetime, depending on how they're dealing with it. And then the other thing that you don't want to do is go too far and create hypopigmentation in the skin. We can't really address that and fix that like we can maybe with this post-inflammatory pigmentation. So those are things that you could create on a skin and that you can, though, avoid. If you're really taking serious what you're doing and understanding and reading the skin, you can avoid those, and then really bringing that balance into your client's regimen and what you're doing, you won't create those sensitivities either. So that's kind of, you know, there's obviously a little bit of leeway here and there to come in a little sooner, but I think that's probably maybe the best guideline when it comes to the peels and adding those after a 90-day program.
And I think that that's an important thing to note, because you know, so many estheticians, we're peel happy, you know, we can't help it. We love exfoliating, you know. But it's important to note that when you are getting into more of those, you know, progressive plus, mid-depth, and certainly deep peels, about the weaning on and weaning off, and not over exfoliating the skin. You know, oh, every 6 months you're going to get a mid-depth peel, or excuse me, every 6 weeks you're going to get a mid-depth peel. I mean, that eventually that exfoliation is going to catch up and do like what you said.
Well, and we say on an ongoing, if you were really just say all you were doing on your clients is mid-depth peels, you would want to do those about every 3 months, and you could do those. So you could do 4 of those in a year, and you'd be just fine. Now, if you were gonna do them closer together for 2 to 3, then that's different. And then you're pulling off for 4 months or so. So there's some variation there, but just like saying, you know, that maintenance, you could do a progressive peel possibly once a month, maybe every 6 weeks, and that depends on the progressive peel and that depends on the client. But that's kind of the kind of role there. And then deep peels, when it gets into kind of just maintenance or every, you know, that type of peel, we only do maybe 1 to 2, if that, a year. So you're kind of looking at those things too and saying, how do I really space this out for a client that just wants to continue to keep their skin looking good, getting those peels every now and then, what's my best approach? And those would be kind of some ideas versus a program, you know.
So do you think that going less aggressive at first on pigmentation is the best route?
I would say it depends on the ethnicity, and now I can't even say the word, ethnicity. Now I finally got the word. Now I can't pronounce it. I would say it would depend on that, wouldn't you? More than anything, but there might be other factors, but that's what I'd really say.
Yeah, and I mean, I always would tell my patients, you know, you don't want your skin to run a marathon if it can only run a mile. So you want to start them slower and see how they react because, you know, her skin up until this one and still even for this treatment, it's not terrible, like, you know, it's not bad.
And the more we're assessing it, I think we're even seeing,
Realizing actually you did really good.
Right. But I mean, her skin was handling it fantastic. So for us to go to this peel that we did now, I mean, those were the proper channels and the proper steps to take. So it's not, I forgot what
Yeah,
I was gonna
you were
say.
talking about, well, you were talking about not, in starting slow, and that's why we always say too, never do a peel on the first visit. So that's one thing that helps you to start slower. And then when it comes to higher Fitzpatrick's or potentially maybe just pigmentation in general, because that is a tricky thing, because sometimes too much heat, other things like that in the skin, you want to watch and see how their skin's going to respond. If it's a higher Fitzpatrick, you've got to be concerned. Are they going to pick? If they do, you're going to have problems. And so sometimes when you do a lighter peel, you can get a feel for if that's going to happen. And I don't think she would have picked if she would have had her omega. I think if she would have gone through that, I think her skin would be in a little bit of a different place for sure for those few days. So that would have changed that, you know, altogether. But yeah. So starting slow is always best. And we were disappointed just because we want it to look amazing. Right. We have high expectations here and high hopes. But, so we did the milk mask. Her skin looks really good. Actually, I don't know if you can see a change from that. It looks really bright and nice and hydrated. Looking good there. Let's see this little area over here. Oh, good. Do you remember that pink?
Yeah.
How was that? Oh,
And you know, I thought when she was here, I actually kind of wiped it because I thought it could have been pen or something.
Oh.
But it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Because
She got her hair done today.
Okay.
okay, so so.
So some more little tidbits of what.
That's so funny. Well, that's why that disappeared.
Right.
Not a great healing milk mask that'll take things away in 1 second. I was like, wait, where did that thing go? That is a healing milk mask. And so anyway, well, and that's something too to be a little concerned about because see where that was right on her pigmentation, which can cause irritation and other things. So when you are getting your hair done, and that's something else to talk to your clients about too, which we probably never really discussed anyway. But in general, I think that needs to be added in post-care forms too, what you do after. But you have to know that the chemicals and everything that you're going through will affect your skin. It affects me without going through it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I get itchy and.
Me too. And my scalp sometimes almost, it's like, is it burning? You know, you're getting like scared. But so it will do that. And so you've got to, when you're going through a peel and you're at that sensitive place and your inflammation's going on, you've got peeling, you've got healing, it's not necessarily the best time to get your hair colored. And so you have to really talk to your clients about that, tell them the precautions, and schedule that accordingly. But that's good to know on there what that was, and we got all that solved. But your skin does, I mean, this looks better. Mm-hmm. This side looks a little dark still. And then I think, let's look at the, where you were kind of, where that irritation is. It looks a little more calmed down, but it still is, you know, a little almost rashy looking or irritated or, you know, something there. So we'll address that as we get into your home care for the next several days too. But overall looks good. So now what we're going into our mandelic arginine. We're going to apply that all over. You can do it with your hands. Okay. And we don't want to, we're not necessarily laying this in as a peel. We're kind of doing it like she would at home. And then we're going to do our chronopeptide. So the mandelic will just offer her very gently continued rejuvenation. It will really kind of be almost like a healing support. Remember that arginine, we have talked about that before. It's a powerfully corrected arginine amino acid, and it has very high wound healing properties. And so this is going to be really good combination of this to add at this state without going too far of other things that you might think you want to add to kind of help this process that's effective. You can't really add too much. This does have a little bit of lightening capabilities too, and properties to the mandelic side as well as antibacterial.
Yeah.
So we're going to bring that in.
Exactly. That'll be real good.
Kind of help her without causing any more inflammation and irritation on her skin, and then adding the wound healing part with the arginine.
That's just
Going right in and looking good. How did that feel going on? Okay. No stingy or anything. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was thinking. And then the chronopeptide. What do you think? A double?
I think so. You know, vitamin A has a unique ability to have an accumulative effect on the skin. So 2 layers is going to double the percentage of vitamin A that you're putting on. But I think also with the niacinamide bits in the product, it's going to be a nice vasodilator to get better dermal nutrient circulation to feed the new skin, but also helps as that melanocyte transfer inhibitor for some of the areas that are a little bit darker. So I think that a double application is best.
Yeah, and so this is a vitamin A that's going to really help to strengthen the skin. And like Caitlin said, adding more will just increase the dosage of vitamin A in her skin. You can go too far, which then creates visible peeling. That's where you see something like our vitamin A. We do have peptide peel, which we do have another ingredient in there that causes that too and helps that to accelerate. But really, essentially, that's a lot of what vitamin A is doing, is going to help your skin accelerate in its turnover process. And that's why we use it so much for anti-aging and so many other effects, skin conditions. But really, the aging skin, because we're really increasing and helping to get that cellular turnover process to be more down to that 28, 30 days cellular turnover process time. And so in here, it's going to add that strengthening. It's going to really kind of accelerate those cells too, help all of this additional kind of hanging on, and maybe give her a little bit more, which is where we want to see through this pigmented area of exfoliation, but very gently. And that will really help the outcome. We're also going to have her use this for home care too, and we'll talk about how and what she does on the home care side, so that hopefully when we see her next, we have gotten some progress and then can kind of continue and finish out her program from there on the area that has the post-inflammatory.
And the skin has, or the body in general, has all these innate programs that are built into them, which are these wonderful wound healing properties and things that these processes the body naturally does. So the chronopeptide A also has the chronoline peptide in it, which basically enhances your body's own biomimetic rhythms. So it's going to help to protect the skin more during the day and then repair the skin more at night. And both of those aspects are really important in the wound healing process anyways. So getting a double dose of the peptide and then also using the peptide daily is going to help with just the body's own mechanisms for healing and protecting the skin.
Very good, yeah. We're going to finish her. We want to really drive this in, penetrate it even further with our omega. But with her skin, you know, the way it is, we want to add that healing too, but we don't want to use just straight omega. So we're mixing the omega with the therapy E and applying that over this, and that will just kind of create a barrier for the rest of the evening. Well, she may need to watch. Are you going back to work? No, okay. You might be able to just leave your skin alone depends on what all you do. If you want to do a gentle cleanse, we can talk about that when we get to your kind of home care.
That combination feels really nice.
Are you going to be going straight home, or are you going to be running any errands?
Run errands, okay. And yeah, it is sunny out today, so we need to put some SPF
We actually have
on.
sunshine today.
So some daytime defense over that.
And you know, Shannon, I want to bring something up because I know
Okay.
that sometimes some of our clients really, they get a misconception about vitamin E and our Therapy E product,
Okay.
and how beneficial the Therapy E actually is in healing blemishes, blemish-prone skin, and the benefits of it. You know, they commonly will think, oh, it's vitamin E. They think of the capsules that you take as a supplement and how those are, you know, nice and oily and not quite that feeling that we want on oily skin. But, you know, our Therapy E has just such this beautiful, lightweight consistency. We actually recommend using it as a moisturizer for more oily, acne-prone skin because of those healing benefits. And, you know, and I just like to bring that.
Yeah, that's true. And there's different, if you will, kind of like with anything, we talk about nuts and the different places of the nut that causes allergies versus some things that you might use for oil extraction or other types of things. You know, there's different components that made up of things like that, as well as in our own bodies and how it's all complex like that. And Therapy E has different ways to extract and process Therapy E, vitamin E. And so this one is really meant to not be so potent. Like if you think of our pumpkin E serum,
Exactly.
that is completely different in how that stimulates the skin and how that is more maybe what you're thinking about, like with a capsule type of a thought, and what people may be thinking of E. This one is really developed more for a gentler effect on the skin, just to bring that healing, some antioxidant, but more of a healing approach to the skin. Where our pumpkin E is really infusing that skin with more antioxidants, like a much stronger punch of antioxidants, and bringing some kind of more even vitamins, well I guess vitamin E, but what that kind of does to the skin to strengthen it, more so than the Therapy. So if you have someone that, let's say, has aging or smoker skin, something like that, pumpkin E could be really good. They need that kind of potent dose of that vitamin E. Someone like acne, or like you were talking about some different things for healing, or rosacea sometimes, Therapy E is your really good option. So yeah, there's different ways to kind of formulate that and bring that to the skin that then responds differently completely from one skin to the other. So yeah, well, she looks good. Oh, I do see the red in your hair. I guess I didn't see your hair. So now that, because at first I was like, well, she got her hair color, but it was red. I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, I don't know how the color works. Maybe it looks red is what I thought, but it actually is red. So there you go. All right, well, we'll have you sit up, and then we will talk about her home care. Can I see what she's on for home care now? Oh, yeah, do we have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious what you think of the new Alluma color. Will that be beneficial to apply after a peel? And if not, how long after?
Depends on the peel, okay? So some peels, like some of our progressive peels, you could finish with that. We wouldn't really want you to necessarily, but you've got some people that just, you know, an acne client may really need a little bit of coverage. They're gonna go put on their MAC or something. You can apply it, and that's fine. You might apply the powder versus the liquid, but you could do either. With this makeup, it was developed to be healthy for the skin and be able to use during the peel process. So it is something that you could have them use. I like to say on a mid-depth, more like day 2 or so, but then when they're peeling so much, you kind of don't want to use it as much, so it just depends. But they get so kind of dark in the way that skin looks, they almost don't need makeup for those first couple days, just because of the way it looks. But if they absolutely had to, they can. That's the nice thing about the Alluma color and how that's how that's developed to be able to work on this type of skin. Yes.
One more question on the Color. If somebody was going through the peel process and they were able to use the foundation maybe a couple of days later, would it be okay for somebody that was more on the oilier side to go ahead and use it if they were going out somewhere?
Anybody can. Yeah, oily skin, especially going through a peel because they're going to be more dry anyway. But then that's where you have the powder as an option too. So you could bring that in more on its own versus the cream. But yeah, anybody really can use it during the peel process. Kind of like, you know, growth factor versus growth factor, serum versus gel.
And I was
yeah,
going
the
to
best
say,
thing might be the gel, but they could use the serum and they're going to be fine going through the peel.
and I was going to say, I mean, the Color actually, like once you got past that initial peeling phase in a mid to deep peel, that could actually be really nice because of the nutrients that are in that, because of the omega that's in that too, and you know, really help to provide that hydration as well as just that little bit of color sometimes that you need as the skin is going through its thing.
Okay, so let's talk about her home care and see if we need to. I don't know that we need to really sit down and do this because pretty much a lot of things are going to be the same. Can you tell me, I need to see her regular home care that we had her on. I believe she is on Chrono.
She is, yeah. She was
then,
on Chrono and Natural Mega Brightening.
Okay. And then does she have Therapy E or hyaluronic serum?
No.
Neither? Okay, what was she using as a?
Blushed wine gel.
Oh, okay. All right. So then we need to add just a couple things in for you, okay, to really be able to go through the next week. So what we want to do is keep you on your citrus gel cleanser, so you're not going to go to the beta green tea. How are you doing as far as, do you have enough of that cleanser? The citrus?
I have, yes.
And you can let us know then if you need more of that. So you want to just cleanse your skin with that morning and night. And then what we're going to do is do the, okay, she does have C-gems and growth factor. Okay, so then you'll cleanse your skin and use the growth factor serum, and we're going to give you Therapy E, and that'll sort of be your moisturizer. I would like you to mix Therapy E and C-gems because I think you'll get some benefits from the C-gems on the stem cell outside of that product that could help, and you have it. So we'll write this down and you can mix those two, and that can be a moisturizer / healer for you. You're going to do that most days, but then every other, or should we do every third?
Well,
seeing her.
I think though, I mean, it's, you know, I think that every other she should be.
She's probably going to be fine, isn't she? Because her skin's really, so we'll say every other. What we'll tell you is that if you did start getting a little sensitive at all, or if you start to peel, okay, then you want to pull off a night and then call us and let us know. But we're going to do the mandelic arginine with the chronopeptide, and you're not going to start that from this treatment for 3 nights. Okay?
Don't worry, we got it.
You got it? Can you repeat
3
it?
nights after.
Yeah, 3 nights from now.
And we'll give you that. But that'll be like her corrective that we're trying to get her to do until we see her again. So we want her to do that for about a week to 10 days. And that should really make a difference in that pigmentation, plus continue to accelerate what we're seeing on the skin too. So she still needs to be kind of post-care, but we're going to add in those 2 correctives. She already has the Chrono, Mandelic, but just every other night, 3 nights after this treatment though, okay? And I think that's really it. And then you have cucumber spritz that you'll need to spray with anytime you need that, and you have the sunscreen still.
Are you okay on sunscreen?
Yeah. Is it the daytime defense or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have daytime defense and using that, okay? So it's not really that complicated. It might sound complicated the way I'm explaining it. So hopefully you guys got it, but it's citrus gel, growth factor serum, Therapy E and C-gems mixed. And that's morning and night, and during the day you add the sunscreen over top. Every other day, or every other night, excuse me, she will add in Mandelic and Chrono. Okay, Mandelic arginine serum and chronopeptide. All right. And so then we will see her. And so we need to do a Tuesday again. So we'll not see her next week, which would be Thursday. We'll see her the following Tuesday. Does anybody have the date on that? Did we get that before we came in? The 27th? You guys should know. When are you and George leaving? What day is
The
that?
28th.
The 28th, okay. So the 28th, Tuesday, please make sure I'm right on that, you guys. We will do that day, which can you do 2:30 again on that Tuesday? It's not next Tuesday, but the following. July 28th. Sound good?
Okay.
2:30? Can we do morning? The earliest we could probably do would be like 11:30. Okay, 11:30 we'll do. We got to get our Tuesday morning going around here.
Uh-oh.
So we'll have people out and everything else, but we'll be here. I hope you guys are enjoying the 90-day program here, and we look forward to seeing more and more progress from you. Thank you guys for your input today and all your help, and take care, and we'll see you next 2 Tuesdays, July 28th.